Hello.
Oh, hello. Good evening. Good afternoon.
Greetings. It's a pleasure to see you here, Lubna. Your audio is cutting out for me a bit. I don't know if others are experiencing the same thing.
Um, I
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I am losing your audio. Not hearing all of it come through. It's cutting out for me.
really
Yes,
let
yes.
me see what I can do about that.
Okay, okay. Well,
When we
while
tested it,
you're
it
doing
was
that,
okay before, but let me see. Is this any better?
I think that is better. Yes.
I hope so because my headset isn't anywhere near, and I look funny.
Okay. Okay, great.
Well, yes. Oh my God, it's so nice to actually see you and to be in your presence. And maybe I'll start again and welcoming everyone. And I know we have people from all over the planet here. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone that is has joined us here for day 3 and the final day of She Summit. It is an absolute pleasure to actually open the day with you, Karen, and someone who's done an enormous wealth of contributions to the industry and to women, and to XR. I would love to hear from you. Just please, if you would introduce yourself a bit more and tell me, I'm sure we can spend the entire 10 minutes of this fire chat talking about the motivation, but what motivated you to start XR Women, and to bring you this vision?
Sure. Yes. Well, first of all, I'm honored to have been asked to participate in the She Summit, and very much admire what Christopher Lafayette and GatherVerse
Indeed.
is doing. Really important initiatives here. So I'm just thrilled to be able to take part. So I co-founded XR Women in November of 2020. In part as a response to the fact that we were seeing a lot of male only speakers at events. And so we thought, well, let's get together, let's practice our speaking skills, let's start meeting on a regular basis. And we thought, well, are we crazy to think that we can do this every week? And we decided, yes, we are crazy, but let's do it anyway. And so since then, we have put on more than 150 events in virtual worlds. And we have some exciting new things coming up. We've just announced an advisory board consisting of Laura Kusamoto, Amy Lamire, Judith Okonkwo, and Shelley Peterson. And we're excited about the ways that they can guide us forward in 2024 to offer more resources to the women in our community. So those were
Oh
the
my God.
motivations. We celebrate the successes of women in the field and serve as a showcase for the skills that the women in the field have, the ways that they are creating in XR. And in fact, we have a business showcase, a spatial computing business showcase coming up on January 31st that will showcase specific women-led companies. So we're super
Oh,
excited about that. Yeah.
oh, that's fantastic. That is definitely not to be missed for sure. Can I ask you to do you know, I got involved in XR some 12 years ago, maybe, when it was just earlier on in well, I'm just a geek. In When it's in the lab, it's what excites me. But how have you found XR to lend itself to inclusion? um, and to, because I myself have been in the industry and in high tech for so long, and it's nice to see more women, and I'm really grateful to you for the effort that you're making, and I can't wait to join your clan at
Wonderful.
full
Thank
scale.
you. Yes, that would be fantastic.
My pleasure.
Well, the one of the main reasons I first got involved in XR was that I saw the opportunity for people to share their perspectives through it in a very powerful way. And my sort of initial entry was with 360 degree video, beginning back in 2015, 2016. So haven't been in
Okay.
field as long as you have. But
Yes.
and I still think that the 360 video has value, although it's kind of been left behind in some ways. It's not at the forefront of technological innovation, but I do think it still has value. And I think that one of the most important things about XR is being able to put yourself in a situation that you wouldn't normally experience, to sort of step in someone else's shoes and see things from the perspective that they see it. So I still think that is important, but also the ability for social XR to connect people wherever they are in the world. Just, we're seeing that here, but there's something different about being an avatar in a virtual space and being in a spatial relationship with others there and being able to get to know them in real time, even though you're thousands of miles apart.
And it's amazing, and I think, and you have extensive experience in that in terms of education and bringing the experience a lot closer to you. It really activates the imagination. But how do you propose a company can we measure the impact or the success of applying XR?
The success of applying it. So I think that first of all, you have to seek out feedback and make sure that you're actively hearing from those who are using your solution and getting their responses and thinking critically about them and about how you can incorporate them. And I think sort of really listening to the responses you get from your XR solutions is hugely important.
Yes, seek feedback, listen. Part of the process we often can do better at. Can you share a personal experience with us with this regard?
Well, let's see.
You have so many.
Yes, there are so many. Well, I think that one of the things that I've heard has to do with the avatars that are used in a particular space. And XR Women, our current home is in the Engage platform. We used to meet in the Immersive Learning Research Network platform, their campus on the Verbella platform. But we also go to various other worlds. And I hear from some people that, these avatars don't represent me. They are not like me, whether it's a matter of body type or race or hair or gender or age. That it's very often that people don't feel like they can be present as they would like to present themselves as themselves in virtual spaces because of the avatar systems. Now, I also know how challenging it is to build an avatar system, and that the simplification of them makes it easier to implement them. And so this is a technical challenge, but it's one that should not be ignored. And I think especially the companies with most resources should be investing as much as they can into making sure that their avatar systems are representative of all the people who might want to come into their space.
Right. I'm cognizant of time. I'm not sure how much more time we have. I think we're almost running out of time. Dr. Karen Alexander, it's really amazing to have you here. But I wanted to ask you, if I still have some more minutes, to ask you, what advice would you give, other than joining XR Women, which is, would you give women who are who aspire but maybe don't have, the courage, or don't know how to get into this industry and to participate?
Sure. Well, I think the main thing is just to get started and don't worry about asking questions and come to spaces like XR Women where you can learn from others, Ask questions. Make sure that you are putting yourself in those communities to connect with others, because all those connections you make can multiply what you are doing and can help you continue to learn, to build networks, to discover opportunities, and to, really get a foothold in the field.
Very wise. Thank you so much. If there was one thing that I should have asked that I didn't ask, what would it? But would you would want to add?
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Right. I think I would just like to put out a plea to allies, both to allies to women and allies to people of color, to be sure that you speak the names of women and people of color wherever there is opportunity. If you know someone who is offering a solution that is a woman or a person of color, make sure you let others know about that. Yes. Whatever the context, drop their name in there, raise awareness about who they are and what they do, because we really need that visibility. Often we're overlooked.
Yes, and very often the greatest talent may not be packaged in some preconceived notion of what it should look like or sound like, and I will just add to your list the disabled. In many cases, they have so much so most cases they have so much more to offer. We just have these labels that we have conditioned ourselves to exist within, and they're our strongest limiting beliefs. I can't tell you how grateful I am for this opportunity to spend these few minutes with you. If it were up to me, I would take the rest of the day to chat with you, and we'll be doing some more of that, I hope, soon. I mean, you are in Pittsburgh, yeah?
I am, yes.
Yeah, and I'm in New York, so I'm going to be making a visit, I think, to come and check
Wonderful.
it out. And it would be a delight to see you in person. And I can't thank GatherVerse and She Summit and Christopher for enough for this amazing opportunity to be in your presence and to have this opportunity to kick off this morning. Thank you so very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Lubna, and thank you to GatherVerse.
Well.
Hello, ladies.
Hello.
I'm going to be your moderator for the day, for the moments that we get to spend together. And I want to say we're gonna go pretty fast and furious. We have a lot of speakers here today. We have a lot of ground to cover, and we're on day 3 of the She Summit. It's our second annual summit, and we're here to make an impact and really educate the world and come together in regards to the funding gap that we're experiencing in today's world, especially in regards to technology startups, and women in particular. So I'm super glad that you all came, showed up, and you're ready to represent here today. Let's finish this summit out strong, and let's have some real ground gained and hopefully some real networking done. So the first question that I have is, the first question is, what strategies have you found effective in securing investment as a woman entrepreneur? And I think I want to go with Diane on this one. Diane, tell me what your experience has been like in this.
Yes, so I've learned that knowledge is your best friend. We're not able just to enter a room and have an idea and people be like, oh, that's amazing, let's invest in you. We actually have to prove, well, in my experience, I actually had to prove that I belong there, that I knew what I was talking about. People, even if people knew who I was, that just got me through the door. But it wasn't until I was given the opportunity to share and lead the discussion and showcase my vision and my strategies, then and only then was it like, oh, okay, so she knows what she's talking about. Even when they came at me with odd-end questions, okay, well, what if this happens and half of the earth disappears? How are you going to solve this problem in your business? Just way out there questions. But having that knowledge and back end, that actually helped me earn their trust, earn their valuation that, okay, this is something we can put our money and financial support into. So knowledge has been my best friend in securing.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I'm sure that that's helpful to all of us across the board. So I think we're ready for the next question. How do you think the funding landscape for women entrepreneurs has evolved in the recent years? And Kelsey, I'll go to you with this one.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, so technically, I own a 501c3 nonprofit. It might be a little bit different, called GG Win Professional. So it's more towards the game industry, not particularly dedicated in just tech. But from what I found, since I'm still in the beginning stages, funding is going to be a little bit difficult. I would say rolling the ball. I have to kind of push a lot more, be very patient. So normally with nonprofits, I think so far with funding in the game industry, what I've noticed personally is there was one group called Women in Games International Wiki, and they are dedicated to also help women more international. And what I noticed for that nonprofit is video game companies in particular would like to help women more in the past few years, and also people of color. So some nonprofits towards game industries are seeing big investments. Wiggy did get over $1 million a couple of years ago, and I thought that was really fascinating.
Yeah.
But I just think whether women or not, it's still very difficult. So I would just think if you're going to keep funding, you just have to be very consistent with it. And it's okay if you're not going to, get it right the first time. So for what I can see, I think people are more open to funding women. It's been very big. I've seen it in XR and towards the metaverse areas, which is great. And video games have also been there as well. And hopefully in a couple of years or even sooner, when my nonprofit is getting a little more foundation, people keep knowing the name, the funding is going to get a little bit easier. So I hope that answered your question.
It did. Thank you for that. I want to touch on this a little bit because I think I can share some knowledge perhaps with some of you quickly. And that is that I have been talking to people about funding recently. And a couple of tips that they gave to me is they said that organizations that are already up and operational, improving themselves to be operational, are actually a lot more highly apt to be funded during this time. And, pitch decks become really important. And so really making sure that you have something that's professional, that's sharp, that's going to answer most of the funders' questions is also super helpful on the back end for any people who are seeking funding. So I just want to drop that really quick to the group. And I think we're going to go on to our next question. What role do networks and mentorships play in overcoming the funding challenge? Ooh, I love this one. Sorsha, I'm going to go with you on this one. So
Hi, Lida. Thanks so much for the question, and great to see so many amazing ladies on this panel. And special hi to Diane and Katerina. What role do networks and mentorship play in overcoming funding challenges? Absolutely imperative, because as Diane said earlier, it's networks. And if you don't have somebody to ask a question and ask support, you're not going to achieve results, because none of us can do this alone. Personally, I'm involved with multiple networks of networks. Can I just check that my sound is okay? Because when I was listening to the last couple of speakers, it was jumping in and out. Yeah, it's clear. That's great. I'll continue. I'm involved with multiple women's groups, including the Women in Immersive Technology in Europe as ambassador for Ireland, the Association of Women in Crypto, which is a global group of multiple ambassadors per country all across the world, led by the amazing Amanda Wick. And Block W in Ireland, Blockchain for Women. So just 3 of the industry groups I'm involved in, and then also plugged in and steering committee memberships to Blockchain Ireland and others more diverse groups, not just female focused. I'm also chair of the Impact Innovation Foundation, working closely with Diane since the last quarter of last year. And I find that without having somebody to call upon with a difficult question, or just to run past, what's happening in the market out there, rather than just reading what's on PitchBook, what's on Crunchbase about the funding landscape, where is the best place to raise funds, boots on the ground, dealing with the startups that I work with. The VC landscape in Europe and the USA has been really, really difficult, and angel investors have been heaven sent. So big shout out to any angel investor out there, and they're huge networks of networks also.
Yeah. So any advice that you would give? I heard all the associations that you're a part of and organizations. Is there any other suggestions that you would make in this arena, aside from organizations and associations, for networking and really being able to seek those angel investors in particular?
Advice, word of mouth, the people that you know, like Katerina here on the panel has an incredible network and huge diverse experience with impact and with women, and has been amazing support to me as well. So just the women around this table, let alone through the rest of the GatherVerse, our web of women is phenomenal. But also there's so much that we need to do in terms of policy for founders and also for funders. We all talk a lot about female founders, but we don't often look at the struggle that female funders also have. And that's policy writing them out of being able to participate in the angel investment economy. Like in the UK in the last few days, legislation has been marked to reduce angel investor status from £100,000 to £170,000 annual earnings, which excludes a huge amount of the female investment pool in the UK alone. And perhaps that's something that may be seen in other countries. And what needs to happen with these women's groups that we have is that we need to be advisors to policy writers to see what is the impact of a new policy, particularly financial, to women who are perceived as new participants in the investment economy. We're still building and writing the rules for VC for women, and maternity is a huge part of that as well.
Great, thank you. Okay, next question. How do you prepare to pitch to investors, especially in a male-dominated venture capital environment? I love this one. Katerina.
This is a really interesting question. Thanks, Alida. How to prepare, but this depends on so many things. As Diane mentioned, you need to have a knowledge, which is number one thing. With that knowledge, you need to build a network, as Sorge mentioned, but then build the assets of your organization on the project that you're building. And so to quantify the impact of that specific project when you build the assets, this is where your network helps. This is where your mentor helps, and people who are working together with you, so you can actually emphasize that unique perspective. When female founders are building the project and building the company, they actually need the full support and guidance as well. And so through that, we actually need to demonstrate that strong leadership, because there's a lot of times that there's an amazing business idea, amazing startup, but with a lack of that confidence, and sometimes authenticity as well, we actually lose the opportunity to raise the funds or to pitch to a group of investors who would, in a way, get a good return on the investment, but they would oversee that opportunity. And so there's a lot of different advices that you will get from different people, but I think what's really important is to step up with that knowledge and that confidence based on the business model and based on the business idea that the female founders are building.
I agree. I also would add to that, it's about knowing your demographic and knowing the people that you're about ready to walk into the room and give your pitch to, right? And establishing a trust and some sort of a connection with each and every single one of them individually as individuals before you even step into the room, I think is always really good. Okay, next question. Can you discuss a time when you had to pivot your strategy to secure funding? Maria, tell me about this one.
Well, I can tell you that I didn't, and I'm going to explain you why. But first of all, I just want to say that I'm so excited to be here with you, with this amazing woman, and just want to express my appreciation to Christopher and also GatherVerse for this very important event. I actually had a situation, so this question is interesting to me for me to answer, because I had a situation with an investor because when we start a project or a company, we were more focused on a specific segment or targeting a specific segment. Targeting a specific segment, but sometimes after having conversations with investors, they want us to pivot, right? But I had a situation where the investor want us to do that, and we weren't ready because it would compromise our goals and our visions. So we didn't got the funding, which was very upsetting. But at the same time, investing and having a relationship with an investor, it's almost like a marriage, right? So we cannot just think about the money. We need to think about what happens after a while. And we were not feeling that investor was aligned with our company's vision. So we didn't pivot. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I love that. I love that response and that answer. And I'm going to hold on this one. And I'm also going to toss the same question over to Divya.
Hi, everybody. And I actually, when you asked the question, I was like, oh, I wish I had gotten that question.
Okay.
So, we did launch our inter-office communication product in 2019, December of 2019. And all offices shut down in 2020, right? Feb of 2020. So we were like, oh, okay, we cannot work on this anymore. Who am I going to sell inter-office communication products to if there's no offices open, right? And so we had to kind of work on changing our strategy from, inter-office communication to AI-based medical charting. And we also started working on something that we can work remotely, right? And sustain the company so that we can come back to it and raise the money for the things that we wanted to raise the money for, right? Because there was no way you could have worked on a hardware technology when, people were working remotely, right? So we had to kind of pivot in that manner and kind of including AI-based medical charting into, our pitch deck. And that has helped us get more, investors talk to us than just, when you're trying to say, hey, I have so many patents and, I'm trying to do this, which will really help people, rather than that. If I say, oh, it's an AI-based medical charting and it'll save you 80% of a doctor's time, right? Then people are more interested because it's all about the catchphrase, right? It's IoT or AI or, something else. And people are more attracted to that. But yeah, we had to pivot that way in order to kind of sustain the company and kind of keep moving so that we could get back to our original product with all the, patents that we had to, get the funding for it later. So I think that's what we did.
Okay. I think that like just sharing those is almost like, our personal experience and our stories in this arena is super duper helpful for all of us, but all of the people who are going to be watching and seeking this information as well. And I'm just going to ask one more person. I'm going to say, Diane, is this something that you've encountered?
I did, but mine was more so, it wasn't so much a tech company, but a consulting company. So that is not very appealing to investors. And I needed funding last year to jumpstart things. So I did a pivot and did research with the Small Business Administration, the SBA, and started looking into their business loans and their 7A loans that have capped out on interest rate and limited fees attached onto it. And that was the way I was able to secure a loan for funding to kind of jumpstart things and get things moving last year. So that was a time where I had to pivot the type of funding I was looking for to actually get where I needed to go.
Awesome. Thank you for that share. And I think that that's also hugely inspiring for, again, other people to know that that's another, don't forget about the SBA, right? And I'm sure that there's organizations like that globally as well. Next question, what changes would you like to see in the investment community to bridge the funding gap for women? So Kelsey, what do you think on this one?
So someone who's at the very beginning of the stages of a startup, I think what my experience is, if your name isn't well known yet or it's not big enough, in my experience, it's been a little bit harder to get people on board because they don't know who you are or they don't know the actual startup, what the nonprofit is. So I think if you want to see change, sometimes you have to start at your little area, to start more local. Because yes, you have big companies, you have big nonprofits and then tech companies or games that are fantastic, are doing really well, but they had to start small. So if people do want to see something go out there, so for instance, with our mission at GG Women Professionals, it's to help raise the voices and share the stories of women in the game industry. But to do that, sometimes people just have to remember that, everyone has to start somewhere. People like Wiggy, Diane, Sorsha, Maria, you all had to start off in the very beginning, and it must have been very difficult. But over time, when people started to realize your mission, the way how you're consistent with it and the way you go for it, funding probably got a little bit easier. And just like Diane said, I'm going to go off a little bit of her, knowledge is a big one. So that's one thing I noticed. People were definitely listening more and a little bit more willing to give more funding once they know, oh, she does know what she's talking about. She does have a mission and a goal where to go. And I guess in my experience, the biggest thing is if they don't know you well enough, it could be hard to get funding in the beginning. But the more consistent I am, the more you kind of share out your names and shout them out, people are going to start to listen. And the more they listen, that role is going to keep going faster and faster until it gets bigger. But that's the best I could answer on that one. I would hope someone can jump in and give maybe where they are in theirs few years ahead. But
well, I would also love you to just share your mission. So what is your mission, Kelsey?
Well, okay. Well, so GG Women Professional is a 501c3 nonprofit. You have to be very patient to make a nonprofit. It took a couple of years just to get state and federal exempt for that. So if anyone starts one, please be patient. But that's, I think the difference is to go for a nonprofit, you have to dedicate your time. And as all of you know, time is money. And I'm not getting paid at the moment for it, but that's okay because I volunteer because I believe in this mission that, as it's supposed to be, I want to help women in the game industry. That's the biggest goal. I want to tell their stories. I want to make sure they're heard. And I want to dive into the areas that people don't talk about, which would be, people might hear a producer or designers with women, but that's great. What about the audio designers? What about those that might be in UI UX? What about those that are now branching into XR and the metaverse in the game subgenres? So I just want to reach the voices for those that don't really get a chance to put on their platform. So being on the GatherVerse, for instance, is a huge change because the GatherVerse is an ally for what I believe it is, and is given opportunity for all of us to talk our case. But I'm very excited. So in the long run, it's just to help raise the voices of women in the game industry. That is our goal.
Okay, thank you for sharing. And Sorsha, I know that you wanted to jump in on this one, so.
I did. Thank you so much for listening, and just so great to hear Kelsey's passion there, and also the humbleness of being so open about volunteering here, because we're all doing so much volunteer work here, and it's something we don't talk about enough, those very valuable hours that we're contributing. And even on a meeting with Diane a couple of weeks ago, I said, I love my volunteer work more than the day job. Why can't that flip over to the other side? But something that I would love to see, and I think that many more women here or in the audience will also agree with this, that we'd love to see more female investors. We're only in single or very low double-digit percentage of women investors. And if we're not investing in each other, then now my 2-year-old investor, my biggest support, has just entered the room, so apologies. Thanks. Yeah, we definitely need more female funders, check writers, and something that we need to start seeing ourselves as our founders, but also future investors, so that we're readying ourselves for the money that we earn on exit, or as we accumulate it, we can go in at syndicates, and we can start to change the funding landscape together by being investors in each other's projects. It's something that syndicates do in angel investment, and in the VC world. We have to write our own careers into this industry. If the people aren't there for us to see us, we have to do it for ourselves.
Thank you. Okay, next question. How do you balance the need for funding with maintaining your startup's vision and values? This is a great one. We kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. So Maria, I know that you've already kind of spoken to this one a little bit. So Katerina, tell me about this one for you.
Well, this is an interesting question. The previous was interesting as well. And I know that if you would give us an opportunity, I think all of us would love to have a discussion about every question that comes up, because it's really important.
Sure.
And for the previous one, I agree with Kelsey and Sorcha as well. What I would like to add is that we need to change the way for the investment opportunities, how they are evaluated, because they're evaluated in a way that female do not have an impact in that. And this is also related how do you balance the need for funding when you maintain your startup, the vision, the values, your strategy, your operations, and everything. So many times the evaluation of the potential investments of the businesses are based on what investors or the VC sees as an opportunity. And so you can see a diverse investments valuated in a different way, where the founder is not able to have a say, because if it's a good opportunity, and it's usually in these situations, the female founders are not part of the discussion. That's the biggest challenge. And so the startups would be evaluated in a way that it's a good opportunity for a VC without females to invest and have a good return on the investment. And what we would like to see really change in a way how the investment opportunities are evaluated, and also the inclusion of female VCs, female investors, and female angel investors as well. And so balancing the funding is really, everybody has to pivot in one way or another. There is no startup, and I work with over 5,000 startups. There is no way that you can go ahead and secure the funding without pivoting a little bit. But now what's really important is that do you want to stick to your vision and values and not pivot? And what Maria said, sometimes we do not accept the funding that does not align with our mission and vision, because then what's the purpose of starting the whole idea and the business? But then it also comes to the operations as well. Do you have a big board who's part of the decision? And then, the values, the cultural values, the purpose of the whole business or the organization, if it's a non-for-profit. There's a lot of factors that impact this. I think this is a great questions for a group discussion where we can really elaborate what's the best way how to approach this.
Does
I think
anybody else?
Yeah,
does anybody else want to add? Does anybody else want to add? Okay, next question. What advice would you give women entrepreneurs starting their career in the modern era of AI? And I'll leave it open for them based off of Katarina's suggestions. So anybody who wants to jump in, Divya, I would imagine you have good advice on this, but does anybody want to roll?
So basically, AI is nothing new, right? This is not the first time people are going crazy for AI. This has happened at many times in the past, right? Where they say, oh, AI, yeah, we're going to do this. And then, it calms down, and then the AI hype comes up again, right? And goes down. People still don't know if true AI or the intelligent AI can be achieved, right? But a lot of what we are seeing now is natural language processing, right? And most people, if they want to get into a career with AI, there are a ton of courses about it taught by various universities, and they're on Coursera. They're on, if you have LinkedIn Premium, they have a lot of, courses there as well. And, you can just get started to understand what AI is and how the AI modeling is helping with, when you enter something in ChatGPT, how is that working, right? That kind of stuff. But I think OpenAI, if you can get into the company, that's great, right? But at the end of the day, AI is about, okay, nobody has done anything significantly at the highest level of AI. I think we are still at the very lower level of AIs, right? Just the language processing and stuff like that. So there are a lot of courses to learn all this, right? It has a bunch of math and, so people who are trying to get into AI, I think they need to brush up on their math skills as well to get there. So,
thank you. Anybody else want to add?
I can go. So as Divya was saying, I agree totally. We're still grasping what is AI. I'm an engineer, and I had the opportunity to study AI in college before this big buzz. And yeah, it's very technical. You can go very deep on it, and I think we didn't reach it yet. So there's a big opportunity, not only for women, but for entrepreneurs who are starting out and really develop interesting projects and products. But I would say that if women are already entrepreneurs in this area, I would say that you need to have the confidence when you go to meetings, either with investors or other kind of meetings. So you need to, I think it helps to really know the product. So for me, it helps because I have the technical background, and I can say, look, I know the product inside out. So there's no questions you can make that I won't be able to answer, right? Because I've built this. So that helps a lot. And then I would say that it's also crucial for you to surround yourself with people that can help you, even if there are mentors or like-minded people or other entrepreneurs. If they're a woman, better, right? Because we need to have examples of people that already at least try to do what we're trying to do. And I believe that surrounding ourselves with these kinds of people that can uplift us, and I think that helps a lot.
Thank you. Anybody else? Kelsey?
I think, so I personally do use a little bit of AI to help me out. So I use Google Bard and ChatGPT. And that he's actually used it for social media posts. So I think towards this question, even I'm a little skeptical with AI. I think people should be a little bit wary when there is new technology, because with new technology, as we've seen in the game industry, some people are afraid of losing their jobs, such as artists. That's a big one that's going on. You can even say certain designers are their fee for a little bit. But just as Maria and Divya has kind of mentioned, and this will also answer Sarah's B's question in the comments, is the more research you put into it, the stronger you are. then you're going to understand how AI will assist you. And that's what I use AI for. It might be simple, but all our social media posts, we don't have a social media manager. And again, time is money and we need to be quick with it. Google Bard has been my best friend when I have to make certain emails and do social media posts. And the VP, Sasha Mensakova for GGM Professionals, she also uses ChatGPT to create pictures for some of our events and also for media and also for her emails. So I find it very beneficial that going forward as entrepreneurs, especially in a startup, AI, I think, can be a tool to assist you. And if used properly and ethically, it can help you in the long run. So that's just my 2 cents on it. Thank you.
I agree wholeheartedly. I've used it for all of those same things as well, and it's hugely beneficial. Anybody else want to add?
Yes, 2 little points I want to put on there is being resilient and adaptable, whether you're entering in your career field or in entrepreneurship. It's this is an area that's fast and evolving, always changing. Be resilient, especially with looking at all the layoffs that are going on. Make sure you have something to fall back on. If you have an interest, maybe learn a second one so you have 2 different routes to go if something needs to pivot. And then be able to learn from failures. Don't just think, oh, I didn't make it, I'm not going to do it again. No, what did you learn from that? What experience did you gather? What can you help pass along to someone else to say, okay, don't do that, I did that and it didn't work. And just touching upon that, when you make it to your level of success, pay it forward, bring somebody else along. Get on platforms like this, meet up with GatherVerse and actually speak, showcase what you've learned, what you've done, so that others can see, okay, she's gone through it, they've made it, I can do it. So once you make it, make sure to turn around and pay it forward.
Yes, love that. Thank you. Are we ready for the next question, ladies? Okay. What sectors of technology are women needed in the most? Which sectors? Oh, how are we going to balance the playing field, ladies? I can't wait to hear the answers to this one. It's free for all. Let's go.
Everything, I think, is the simplest answer.
You think what is the simplest?
Agreed.
Everything.
I agree with that.
And I used to work at Intel, and the ratio of men to women is 10:1. So it's really hard when you have to navigate something like that, even though it's not your fault, right? And even though you shouldn't have to do it. But I think in every technology sector, it's very hard to find, technical women. There's a lot of other like HR and, other people, but technical women is very few. The ratio is very bad. So I think just in general, so when I was doing my master's, there was this, like a non-volunteer stuff that we did where we used to go to schools and we used to encourage girls to actually do technology stuff, right? We used to help them build robots, do small coding and things like that. And it's amazing how many girls think they're not smart enough to do it. So our goal was to tell them, hey, you are smart enough and you can do this, and teach them stuff, right? So I think we need to start from there if we have to balance that out.
So I think this is also a good message when we talked about, Diane, you mentioned, pivoting in regards to, what might be coming for people and learning the new skills. And so this might be like a big push to encourage women, hey, get in here, get in this arena and get in this field, right? This field is going to be booming, right? Like it's not slowing down, it's only speeding up. So jump in on this one and help each other out. It sounds like there's a world of need across all positions in this arena. Is that correct?
Yes, and I would say yes and no. We would also need to be mindful of these huge tech companies that are doing all these layoffs. So we can say, yes, across the board, we need women in all tech positions. But I wouldn't recommend a woman to go get a job go learn a certain tech skill if they just laid off 30,000 people. There's not a need for that position. So also looking at that landscape of, okay, what positions like sustainable technology in the environment, that's hiking up. Artificial intelligence and machine learning, that's hiking up. And then also because we've had this awareness to build up up. We need funds for women. We need investors that are women. Now that we have that, we don't have the pool of startups that have been launched by women to meet the need that we've been requesting. And so now going to young women at a young age to say, okay, STEM is great, but don't just be career workers in STEM. You can also be the innovators and the developers of STEM. And actually, so one of the things we're doing at Impact Innovation Foundation, yes, we're mentoring and building up startups, but we're also working with our education arm to go into the K through 12 schools to say, you guys can actually be the creators and the innovators. So those would be the top 3 areas I would say that really need that boost to go in rather than just a blanketed across the board.
Education, I love it. I think definitely funneling it into those channels. But I also like your shout out. So it can also be industry specific, right? With the layoffs that are taking place right now. So really paying attention to that. And does anybody else want to add on this one? Kelsey,
I think, sorry.
You're fine. You guys go. I'm here for you.
I'm just, so since I'm more a little bit in the games industry, and we too are going to want to do a summit in a few months. And what I was looking into when I'm trying to find speakers is who are those that are less heard of. I kind of brought up audio engineers. So in the game industry, more women, and probably also in other tech industries, I noticed women are going to go more towards production and project management roles. They don't really go towards coding or something that I guess can be a little bit more male dominated. It can be quite intimidating, especially if you're the only one in that class or only one in that sector. But from what I can tell in the game industry, there's not many women that are in audio, which is pretty big. With AI kind of rising, I do see a little bit more women going in that area. I would also say probably a little bit more on XR UI, because a lot of women go towards art and design areas. They're quite creative that way. But just kind of what Diane was saying and the others were saying, you know, you kind of, it's almost like a confidence boost to go, whether it's young girls go into their classroom and talking to them, to college students, because everyone feels a little bit of imposter syndrome. But the reality is you can do it. So if, you know, you just kind of have to have a goal and think about it. But just like Divya said, I think every sector needs to have women in it. I think not just only that, but women who want to be in there, because I don't think people should push someone to go into something. So for instance, I actually know how to code, you know, and it's fine, but I don't have this huge passion where I got to code all the time. I'm going to do this and that and coding in C++, C# and JavaScript, and you name all the scripting languages and object-oriented. And that's okay. So if you want to go in STEM areas and tech, AI, and design, I would say for women and others, find what you're really passionate in the area. And I think it's good to know your skills. So I'm actually taking a project management course to better myself in leadership management and how to manage my nonprofit, while also when I go back into a day job in the game industry, how I can manage those tasks better to help and be beneficial to the team. So when you're going to go into it, know the skills you want. It's okay to learn another skill to help you along, and just make sure you're really passionate what you go into. Because if you're not passionate about it, then what's the point of being in there? So that's just my 2 cents when you're going to go more into technology sectors.
I agree. And I would like to also ask, is there key characteristics, ladies, that you think are going to be a commonality amongst a certain, you know, characteristic type, a certain nature, certain things, skills that people will actually, you know, this would be a beneficial industry potentially for them?
Project management is actually growing really popular for those that don't want to code into it. That's one thing I've noticed recently.
Is there like characteristics, personality characteristics that you can think of, Maria? Is there like you are a coder, right? Like you are.
Yeah.
What are some of your key characteristics that maybe other women might also harbor?
Well, sometimes I joke and say that as an engineer, you need to be an introvert because you need to spend a lot of hours working on a problem. But yeah, but it's not really true. But you need to be comfortable spending a lot of time trying to find a solution for a problem. So you need, I think it's a mix of being persistent, and also being very driven by a given area, right? But Kelsey was saying that sometimes it's intimidating to be the only woman at some rooms, and it's true, because that happened to me a lot as an engineer. But it's because we're talking more about the technical side, but there are a lot more positions on technology that we're not talking about. For example, in XR, we need designers, we need 3D designers, and we need other kind of positions that are not so technical, but are still needed, and you're still working in technology, but not just coding. So I think we need different kind of people, and there are a lot of positions that were not mentioned here. And it's not just being able to code. So sometimes when people talk about, like Divya was talking about, that project of going and talking with young girls, I think it would be more beneficial to talk to them and not just focus on tech, because of course we're talking about technology, but we can just tell them, look, yes, you can be a coder or you can be an engineer and you can really build the product, but there are a lot of other things you can do, and you're still working on technology, and you're still supporting projects in technology.
Thank you. Okay, let's go for another question, shall we? Okay. Next question. Can you share your experience in seeking funding for startup and challenges faced? I would
like to share a couple of from the startups that we're working with, and to tie this question with the previous one about women in technology. And I agree, we need women in every single industry and sector. But what I would like to share with you is that I've been working with a couple of different startups where women are founders. And so one of them is technology, magnetic levitation in transportation. The second one is technology in underground supply chain. And the third one is, and these three are very interesting, the technology used for its innovative circular technology in maritime industry. The three of them, so just take a moment to think about what does it look like to build those startups and those businesses, and how their daily work look like. And then imagine how the pitch look like. It's really amazing. You just want to hear more information. And then at one point, I just wanted to compare and in my mind and see if we would hear the pitches of those three different startups comparing to a startup that is offering a space for co-working. Can you imagine the complexity of those three startups, and then when they pitch for the funding, comparing to something that is really basic? Yet those three startups never actually, they're still struggling, trying to find a way how they can present that these ideas are something that is actually going to be very useful. This is a sustainability and sustainable technology that will be a must in the next 5 to 10 years, because what we always talk about, what I always talk about with the founders is that if you don't have a sustainability and technology integrated in the foundation, in the framework, in operation strategy, you won't be having clients and users in the next 5 to 10 years. And so that's something that experience that those female founders are going through is very challenging in order to make sure that they can convey the value of the business idea and the businesses that they're building, and then trying to overcome the challenges that they face every day. So that's something that is very, very interesting that I have been, that I'm seeing every day.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to add on this one? Kelsey?
I would,
yeah,
start in the, who wants to go? You can go next.
Sorcha.
No, Kelsey, carry on. I can social media afterwards.
I would since I'm more at the beginning of the stages, it is still a little bit difficult funding. But one of the things that I know is we had to pivot into Twitch streaming with the nonprofit, because you go into normal route of doing social media posts like, hey, donate to Zeffy.com or to PayPal, wasn't really getting enough traction. So one of the things we did was Twitch streaming. And that way it was a casual invitation for audience of all kind to come meet us and see what the nonprofit does, while talking to the co-founders and knowing what the mission is. So we found a little bit of funding that way. And as a nonprofit, we don't have normal investors. So a nonprofit investor is someone who would probably be investing normally in larger sums, from what I can tell, over a few years. But to me, I also can see it, if you donate $1 a month towards a cause, that means you really want to see this cause. Well, donors, on the other hand, could be a one-time donor. I bet everyone has donated money to maybe a school or to someone's function, but you didn't really invest into the mission and say, oh, I hope, Girl Scout cookies did really great this year, and I hope they did their mission this. But normally we just buy the Girl Scout cookies. We don't go further. So that's what a donor would be versus an investor with us. So, but the challenges, again, is we're all trying to seek funding for a nonprofit. People just need to know your mission. And I think the hardest part is, can you find investors or donors that believe in the mission? So that's been the challenge enough, is once people kind of know the mission, they're like, oh, this is great. But not many people know if they can believe it or not. And I think that's the hardest part, whether nonprofit or just regular startup, is, do you believe in what we're trying to do with our company and what we want to succeed with it? And then once you get people on board, it would help.
Thank you, Kelsey. Thank you. And Sorsha, we're going to let you wrap up. We're going to call it a wrap on this section of our summit. And ladies, I'm so grateful for all of you and your knowledge and your skills. Sorsha?
Thank you. Well, the last thing that I would just add to what Kelsey said is that do your research, choose your investors. Do not spray and pray. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of your brand. You're diluting your value. Search for investors that you think that you want to work with, because bear in mind, you're going to be working with them very closely under a lot of pressure for at least 5 years. So you want to get to know them and make sure that they know you and what you're about and that you're aligned, because 1 year into the journey is very difficult if those values are not aligned. Also, have multiple options available to you. Don't just think that you have to go for VC, angel investors, cash prizes from competitions, accelerators. There's lots of options out there, and just spend time researching where you can get quick cash that way, while you're building relationships with VCs who you want to form a strategic relationship with. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
Crystal, I think you're still on mute. I am so excited to connect with both of you. It sounds like you have an amazing book that you have done that we're going to be able to have an opportunity to hear about here today on the GatherVerse, on the She Summit. So, yeah, I mean, do you want to just share a little bit about yourselves before we head into?
Yeah, of course, sure. First of all, thanks for having us. We are very glad to be here.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So I'm Christelle. I'm a digital marketing specialist in my daily life, and I'm also author of the book 10 Countries, 10 Women's 10 Lives that I have done with Emma. Emma, over to you.
Yes, thank you. I'm actually an artist, a painter, and we had this idea with Christelle to do this book on women, because we do believe that women are very strong. and we wanted to share these stories with you. And so thank you very much for having us, and good morning, because I think it's the morning for you, because for us it's the evening here in Paris and London. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, ladies. Thank you for joining us and for your time and your energy and your efforts and your amazing book. So I can't wait to learn more about that. So one of my first questions for you is, what inspired the creation of your book, The 10 Countries in Women's Lives?
So if I may, I will reply about this question, because I believe we need to challenge the idea that some women don't see their worth. And oh God, I believe we are all worthy, even if we are coming out of nowhere. And I believe it's important to remember that every story is interesting, whether it's filled with major hurdle or not at all, you know. We did this book to improve your way of thinking. This book aims to bring us some strength as well. So, you know, I believe we have all in our life someone, you know, to inspire us, and one who made adversity to succeed, someone who crossed the tunnel and came to light, someone who suddenly is your great friend. So, I mean, we all meet in our life someone great for us. So, yes, so we did this book also to change the mindset of people about women, because I believe, despite the fact that we are in 2024, mindset needs to be changed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love that. Thank you. So my next question would be, how did you select the stories and the women that you featured in the book?
Okay, this one is for me. In fact, the selection process was rather meticulous and aimed at representing rather a large tapestry of experiences. And we sought stories that resonated with resilience, triumph over adversity, and the courage to navigate all these sort of hurdles that you get in life sometimes. And the featured women were chosen because of the diversity of their backgrounds, and also their nationalities were all different. And of course, they all have in the book, everybody has a really different experience. And so this is what we thought would be very interesting to talk about.
I have goosebumps right now. I love this. It's global, and you guys, like, it was well thought. I really have strong appreciation for that. Bravo.
Thank you.
Can you share a story from your book that particularly moved you, and what was the reasoning for it?
Yeah.
Wow. So maybe I can start. I believe for me, so all the stories, they are interesting, by the way, but one particularly moved me.
Yeah.
It's the one from Patricia from Costa Rica. It struck a chord because of the story of the children abuse. This point touched us, and is also on the other side very awful. I mean, so, you know, yes, definitely the Patricia story for me.
Yes, it's the same for me. Patricia, I actually met her in France whilst walking my dogs, and we started to chat, and I heard about her story. This is a wonderful lady of 70 who was the first person who started implementing in Costa Rican schools lessons to young girls. You do not have to accept sexual advances. Sorry, you can say no, this is not right. And she even gave over her own house in Costa Rica to have help the young women who were expecting babies and who had been, you know, unfortunately raped or whatever, and to help them get through this. And she started this association. I call it association because I don't really know how to call it, but and she's been absolutely wonderful helping young girls, and she does it still to this day. So it's an incredible lady.
Yeah, incredible. And really teaching those young women how to kind of take their power back and giving them support, it sounds like, right?
Yeah.
In the process of that. That's amazing. Yeah. And what challenges did you face in collecting and presenting these narratives? Like, what were your greatest challenges with that?
Yeah, well, of course, everybody was all over the world, basically. It was India, Costa Rica, Canada, New York, everybody like that. So we did a lot of WhatsApping and videoing and going through all the text with every lady. And we had to also be very careful and be attentive to what they wanted to say. And of course, we went through all the text with them and said, is this okay with you? And is that really what you want to say? We had a series of questions, and these questions were all the same for everybody. But we said to each lady, if there's one question in particular that you don't want to answer, you're not comfortable with, it's fine. So that's how we basically went through it. We want to really be very careful with the editing and the collection of everything.
That's incredible. Sensitivity, right? The sensitivity that went into it.
Yeah.
So the small stories about this, because Emma, she's talking about WhatsApp and conferencing, etc. So we did this project during the lockdown, between 2020 and 2022. So yes, we've took some time to talk with everybody, and it was okay. It was okay, So just to say that technology helps sometimes.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. How do you hope that your book will impact the readers and their understanding of women's lives globally?
Well, by sharing this story, we aim to foster empathy, break stereotype, and inspire readers. So we hope that readers will gain a nuanced understanding of diverse live women lead globally. So we wanted, as I said early in the discussion, we would like to change the mindset of the people. I know that we are only 2 women, but I believe if every day everybody is doing their part, we can change, even if it's not text, a day, even if it's years. But I mean, we need to start somewhere.
And this is inspiring. It's something that people can pick up, right? Women around the globe essentially can pick this up and even translate if necessary, right?
Absolutely. If somebody's going through the same thing somewhere, they can read that and say, oh, this person managed to get out of it. I can too. There's a solution always.
Yes. The roadmap, right? From somebody else's life. I love that. What common threads or themes emerged across the different stories in your book? Was there commonality?
Well, well, even though the people were, diverse cultural backgrounds, and wherever they came from, there were common sort of threads of resilience, of being strong, and I've got to get through this, and the pursuit of growth and everything like that. And these women had really unusual challenges, and it's particularly interesting as to how they overcame it. Everybody did it in a different way. Somebody would go bang straight on. Somebody would take their time and think about, what am I going to do next? And I think this is very interesting, because whatever walk of life you come from, basically, women are the same.
Yep.
So we all confront similar problems every day in our lives, and this we thought was interesting.
Yeah, that just gave me goosebumps again. I mean, right? It's really interesting. So like the golden thread that's woven amongst all women, right? Certain characteristics. And how did this project change your perspective on women's issues and empowerment?
I believe this question is for me. So engaging with this story profoundly shift our perspective. We believe, again, each one of us is special, even if it may seem ordinary to the storyteller, because you will see when you will read the book, there is normal story, there is strong story, art story, difficult to read. By the way, as we said in 2 questions before, so some women, they were very keen to talk about their story, but we didn't put everything in the book because some topics were very sensitive. And maybe by reading this book, we want spread the idea that everybody can be strong, and we would like to bring some simplicity and success in it. So that's it.
Yeah, makes total sense. And what role do you believe, Emma, I'm guessing this one might be for you. What role do you believe storytelling plays in inspiring change and understanding in society?
Well, storytelling is a kind of a catalyst for change, I think. And you learn a lot through books. You read about people's different lives, and you create a shared human experience. And women can get together and feel, I'm not alone. And it also makes people aware, perhaps, that in life, stop complaining sometimes. Be positive, and as soon as you can be positive, you can move forward much more easily, even in difficulty. Try to sort of have this sort of white light and get yourself through it. Even though you're really in a hard time, there's always, I know somebody said to me once, I think it was my father actually, when you feel that you're really in the bottom, there's only one way to go, and that's up. So, try to think like in this way.
Ladies, you have my apologies. There's so many more questions I want to ask, but we are running short on time and spilling over. But I cannot wait to dig into your book. And thank you so much for sharing your experience and your journey and writing it with us. We really appreciate you so much.
Thank you very much for having us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hello, ladies. Welcome to the GatherVerse She Summit. This is going to be I believe, one of our final talks for the day. I'm super excited that we have a full screen of beautiful women that are here to share. So thank you so much for joining us. We're a little bit behind on this, but I do want everybody to know that this is about technology, creativity, and women coming into the intersection of that and wellness. And that's why we're all here today, is to collaborate and share information with other women in hopes to continue to help to facilitate their growth and their expansion along with us. So thank you. So first question coming to you, ladies, is how do you integrate creativity into your leadership style, especially in the tech industry? Love this one. And the last one, we kind of did a little bit of an open forum. So we do have to keep things short, but I would like if a couple of you could answer quickly to each one of these questions. So I'll leave it open. Does somebody want to jump in on this?
Sure. Oh, well, I'd be happy to. I don't think that I have answers to all the other to many of the other questions. So I'd love to just start by saying that and I don't know how you all feel about this, but I think that creativity comes from guiding clients to understand and imagine how they can use different technologies to accomplish whatever their goals are. And the creativity also comes from helping them translate those ideas to take maximum advantage of whatever the features of the technology that they use are. We typically work with museums and cultural organizations, so we're usually working with teams of people. So there's a sort of creativity involved in bringing teams of people together, to agree on something.
Yeah, collaboration and creativity, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So what's the most amount of people that you've had in a situation like that, where you've had multiple creators coming together to collaborate?
Oh, I think probably something we did for the Rubin Museum that we're still working on, which is an installation called the Mandala Lab. And a mandala is a Buddhist device, or even a Hindu device that, some people know, right? That allows people to learn about their emotions and get a better handle on them in order to basically be happier and be kinder in the world. And we had a team of about, I guess we were maybe 20 people altogether working on that at certain times. But if I have an opportunity, I'd like to talk about another project later on. So I'm happy to turn it over to somebody else.
Absolutely. Thank you, Robin. Mary.
Myself. Hello, everyone. So creativity is probably the only way I survive at any career. I was a journalist for over 25 years, and I think one has to be very creative when working with clients from the age of 2 and up. As a hypnotherapist, I find that creating scripts comes quite easily for me, but I'm dealing now with clients who have, some of them have aphantasia, which is their inability to actually imagine anything. Or they can hold on to the idea of an apple for about 2 seconds, and then they close their eyes and they can't imagine anything else. So I have been trying to combine VR and AR to help with phobias and post-traumatic stress disorder. And there's so much research now coming out of all sorts of different places, universities, Saudi Arabia, Netherlands, Switzerland, in Basel inclusive. They're doing some augmented reality with the fear of spiders, and it really helps people who just simply can't imagine things but are holding on to post-traumatic stress disorder. And so I'm combining these things now to help people, obviously continuing with hypnotherapy and using audio kinesthesia. I'm a nervous speaker myself today.
You're so good. You're so good.
Kinesthetic technology, uses as well, but we really find that I'm really finding that it's really advancing work with people who just simply can't imagine things. And now we can just combine two worlds and help them through and make a life-changing experience for them. So that's my little thing that I'm doing with Change Hypnotherapy. Thank you.
Incredible. Thank you. I'm going to move to the next question. Can you share an example of a project where creativity significantly contributed to its success? Yes, Eva.
In my case, creativity allowed me to, I draw invisible patterns in nature and in perception. So by understanding how perception works and being able to draw the structure of the gears of thinking where constructs are projected, I basically inspire people to see within themselves how they perceive, so they can free their creativity, understanding how the structure of reality is a hologram, or how their perception can open any potential, and how you challenge your own belief system, how you create your own emotions by comparing what you know with what is happening. And that is because I'm really visual. Other people are auditive or sensorial, but I'm super visual. So in my case, my hyper visual skill allow others to maybe heal some the fantasia that she was talking about, or to free their creativity in a way that they can imagine other things that before they believe was impossible. And understanding wholeness as consciousness or a holographic structure where it has no absence, you can basically improve your creativity. And many of the people I work with, they basically become limitless in laughing or creating things that were more useful or less limited than before. And another thing is about making it joyful, because sometimes we take ourselves too serious and the task we are developing too serious. So freeing your creativity allows to make it more fun and like create a better environment. So people are more creative when they are like in a kind environment or in a playful environment, they become more creative even. So joy is a really important skill that I think we have to improve, and to free creativity of others, because in a pressure environment, people are not in fear. You don't bloom in creativity. So that's my perspective. As more you see the invisible and you make visible the invisible, suddenly the impossible is possible. So that's my point.
Yes, I love that. Does anybody else? Megan, I saw you really like shaking your head on this one too, and Lucy, it sounds like you both want to contribute on this one. So let's move quickly, but I do want to hear your contributions.
Yeah, I'm happy to share an example. So it's taking a different angle a little bit in terms of how creativity is integrated in this project. But the example that I wanted to share was VR environments that we used for assessment. And I should probably say that my background is VR, working in virtual reality for assessment and learning and development and training. And we had a couple of environments specifically for assessing early careers. And our challenge was to create a coaching experience for senior leaders using those same environments. And what I love about it is that, I mean, the credit doesn't go to me. Shout out to Hannah Lee and Sarah who worked on it, a coach and a designer who spent a lot of time experimenting, failing, trying, letting go of certain things that didn't work, and then trying again to come up with a coaching experience using virtual reality as a tool for a really impactful self-insight experience, which is associated with coaching, which is really, really impactful for behavior change and development for senior leaders. So that's an example I wanted to share, where creativity is used to experiment and use virtual reality in a different way that we might have not thought of.
Thank you. Anybody else on this one? Okay. We'll move to the next question. How do you maintain personal wellness while working in high-pressure tech environments? Oh, I love this one. Okay, Megan, you're all in.
Perfect. I'm ready. Thank you very much, ladies. Honored to be here. My first overlay is I like to look at everything with the masculine, feminine, and the bridge. So for this, I see the masculine is the tech, the feminine is the creativity, and the wellness is the bridge. So for me, this is my passion. I have tools for transformation. I think that it's super important for everyone to have their, and this is a really masculine term that's coming up, ammunition in their tool bag. So know what your go-to is. Is it breath? Is it journaling? Is it being outdoors? So when you have the signs of stress coming up, for me, my body is a barometer. I may get thirsty. I may start speaking quickly. I may get a little pain in the back of my neck. And I learned this like 30 years ago. There's signs for me to stop. It's like, remember when you're a kid, stop, look, and listen? It's to stop. Turn the computer off. Go outside. Take a breath. Call your child. I mean, whatever it is for you, we all have our own unique ways of thriving on the planet in humanity. So know what your tools are, or find someone to help you find what your tools are.
Thank you. That's great advice. Yeah, Trish.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. I love GatherVerse, and it's so nice to meet everyone. For me, wellness can be challenging in the tech industry. So some of the things that I've done is really dive in deep into getting to know myself better, because the more that I get to know myself, the more that I know my needs, the better that I do in wellness overall. I mean, really building this company has taken a lot of my day-to-day routine away, or I've allowed it to. So I'm really trying to integrate some of that back in now. But for me, I'm an introvert, even though I'm so outgoing. So I like to spend time by myself in complete silence and solace with my dog. Animals are really good. Animal therapy, going outside, speaking to friends that are in alignment. And I love what everyone else shared so far. What Megan shared about kind of gauging, like, how does it feel in my body? So how does a specific conversation make me feel? And is it in alignment? That's kind of what I've been tapping into a lot recently. And also surrendering to a lot of the things that are out of my control. I can't control everything, even though I want to. That's tough for somebody like me, who's an alpha female. So kind of surrendering to what can I handle and what can I not, and then just letting it go and letting it flow.
Great advice. Thanks, Trish. And Paige, I know that you can add on this too.
Absolutely. Well, it's incredible to hear the other panel members' points, because I hear my own voice within this. When I have high highs or low lows, I tend to find myself back in an equilibrium when I lean back into my community by being present and in the moment, going to XR Women or my XR Fitness group, but most of all with teaching and guiding, leaning into my own community members in the Women in Horizon group. We've been doing this class, Building Empowerment, and it's incredible. We work together to learn world building skills and scripting, and it's like an incredibly intimate ritual of like using the tools to literally stretch or draw out trauma or bad feelings within ourselves, right? So the trauma specialist Bessel van der Kolk talked about in his book, The Body Knows the Score, how trauma or fears and bad experiences or just our daily micro traumas of highs or lows live in our bodies. So like building and world building, that's like literally like takes what's inside of you and you can reshape it with simple shapes and forms. Now, in this class, we do things like build a fire and then create a script and learn how to make an object to put in the fire to make room for something new, or amplify our voices with voice scripting lessons. And all of these things, you know, sometimes on a Tuesday, I feel like not teaching the class and just like reverting into isolation. But then I have this, and that showing up in presence, right? Showing up to my own events keeps me accountable, and the community is always that time with somebody in the metaverse or even on a video call.
Leaning in.
Leaning into my community.
Thank you. Thank you, Paige. I think that that's also great advice. Thank you. Next question. How do you balance technological innovation with the human aspect of creativity and wellness? Yes, Lisa, take the floor. You got to unmute, Lisa, unmute.
Sorry, I thought you unmuted me. Sorry, it took 10 minutes for the system to let me in, so that's why I was a little late. I was waiting in the holding room. So for me, I come from a technology background in that I'm a filmmaker, and I worked for a long time, a couple of decades on blockbuster films. And so creativity and artistry drove the invention of that technology, including AI. We've been using AI in the film industry for about 30 years. In animation, visual effects specifically, but also in building out pipelines for doing large films. I also took a break. So pertinent to that is I would supervise about 1,000 people on a daily basis. And then I took a break and I co-founded the first fund on the planet for climate change, carbon reduction technologies, back in 2004. And so I was the only woman in that environment. I was going to say also, but women started growing in the technology side of the film industry, but I was still predominantly the only woman at most of the tech meetings. So the point I want to make is one, creativity, imagination, the mind is what drives technology innovation, always have. It's always based on the human body. Whatever we discover, whatever we become conscious of within our human body, we emulate that, and we try to build a technology that can actually do what the human body does. Mm-hmm. So it's our own imagination that drives innovation, but it's also the business demands. Whether you're doing a fund and it's new technology you're introducing to the planet for a specific purpose, or you're working on a film, whether it's AR-driven, VR-driven, XR vision, AR, or whether it's just a blockbuster Hollywood film, it's always the human that drives the innovation. As far as balancing wellness and creativity, I teach people how to generate more consciousness. Yes, you can journal, and yes, you can meditate, and but learning to channel and generate more consciousness in the moment that you need it is really, really important, because you can't step away if you're in the middle of a deadline. You can't step away if you're in a meeting. You can't step away if you're interviewing tech companies for potential investment. You have to generate consciousness while you need it, generate energy for yourself while you need it, generate focus and concentration while you need it. So I teach people that, and I learned that through direct personal experience. What I do in my spare time is I come from a lineage of traditional women medicine holders up in Northern Canada. And so I was lucky to grow up with the Northern Lights, which makes me different than most people. And I study medicine. So in my spare time, I study medicine, Chinese medicine. I was in China 10 years working, but I also study medicine in my spare time. I've been studying Tibetan medicine the last 6 years in my spare time. And I find the understanding of my mind, my body, and my spirit also helps me innovate technology, because technology is birthed from ourselves, from humanity.
Agreed. Thank you. Thank you for that share. I think we can probably take the next question, or you want to add on that, but it sounds, oh, we just moved. So here we go. So can you discuss a challenge that you faced in integrating tech, creativity, and wellness, and how you addressed it? Does anybody want to take the lead on this one? Can you discuss how a challenge that you faced in integrating technology, creativity, and wellness, and how did you address it? Eva.
I've created several virtual reality scenarios for people to understand perception. So I spent several hours painting 3D models for people to get inside and see what they use to perceive through the hard disk of memory, how conditioning works, how fragmentary perception works. And that damaged my sight a lot. So I lost a lot of vision. And for that, I started creating patterns of exercise of visual yoga, for example, and making a real routine of like cutting the time I spend painting VR and respecting the organism. I had to study like anatomy of the eye and seeing why the VR, not only because the headset now has all the trackers that were before in tripods in the room. So now all this EMF radiation is frying your brain and your sight. And for me, it was really worrying, because I saw the community placing those gears in the schools and in kids that they have a thinner skull. So I spent several hours advising people like, hey, we are not aware of what is going on. And so I, instead of like improving or the VR world, I end up becoming like an awareness advisor for people to say like, don't place that in a skull that is still a child. Be aware of technology, EMF frequencies that are not proportional, because the engineers do their best with what they know, but they don't understand nature proportions and wavelengths. So they develop technology that end up being harmful. So I end up having to learn a lot of skills about being in nature, going to trees when the sunset or in the sunrise, because that enhances your life force. Because working with technology can really fry you and change your organism in a way that you didn't expect. But that made me improve, and I ended up having to study a lot of medicine and anatomy to recover. So I just ask everyone after that, like, be aware of not playing headsets in kids' heads, or being aware of maybe exploring biogeometry science, that is a science from Egypt that allows to harmonize technology by placing specific artifacts in the technology, so the frequencies that comes from the headset are harmonized and doesn't fry you. That's my case. I was really sad because I love painting, and VR is amazing to draw the invisible, but you have to be aware of the damage of the EMF.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for sharing your story. And thank you for sharing your story so that it can actually help others, right? And others can be aware of it. So we're grateful for you for that. What role does technology play in enhancing the creative process and well-being, or personal well-being? So we're on the same one. Paige, you feel like you've got something to add here?
Sure. I believe the role that technology plays in enhancing creative processing and interpersonal well-being is like a integrated best friend. Of course, we just heard that, yes, there are frequencies that can be damaging, but along with that, looking at like a different part of the way that it can actually also heal us. It can sometimes, when we have challenges, we can make best friends with them. So having technology as our, like, a lover or a family member or a relative in our perspective can allow us to grow like it's a garden. There was a moment where there was toxicity, and I drew a flower and posted it online and invited anybody in the world to remix that flower garden. And over 4,000 people contributed to that VR garden. So
incredible.
We can create that best friend relationship with these tools.
Yes, I love that. Thank you, Paige. Thank you for that ad. And does anybody else want to add on this one before we move to the, yes, Robin. Oh, and Robin's got balloons. Hello.
That was a surprise. So I have a sort of a different take on this because we're working on a project also right now with virtual reality to develop a VR platform that's going to teach interpersonal skills using a methodology that was developed at the Museum of Modern Art about 30 years ago. It's called Visual Thinking Strategies. And it's based on having very carefully facilitated discussions about art to teach these interpersonal skills like observation skills, close listening, team building, perspective taking, and empathy. And I think art is really good for thinking, in part because it represents the human experience in all its diversity, you know? So in our pilot program, we're partnering with the University of Miami Medical School and also the School of Nursing and General Studies and the Lowe Art Museum to train medical, nursing, and physical therapy students in these essential non-technical skills in order to improve patient care. Because typically students will have to go to a museum for VTS sessions, and bringing this type of education into VR means that students can have access to this training regardless of where they are, whether they're near a museum or not, and thus students, clinicians, and ultimately patients who live in rural and often culturally poor areas where museums and high quality medical services are often lacking will be able to benefit. So that's sort of a different take on using the technology to improve well-being.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much, Robin. I'm all about the using it for medical and wellness, right? And really diving into that and how it can be beneficial. And Trish, I'm going to let you go, and then we're going to move on to the next question right after this.
So I also have a bit of a different take on it. For me, I see there's a multitude of benefits to technology helping with wellness and creativity. But for me, it really also gets rid of borders that were otherwise implemented by society or small towns or whatever. Like, I never really fit in the box, and my friends basically were all over the world. So technology for me really bridges the gap for me to be able to find like-minded people, especially as the world is ascending and humanity is waking up and leveling up on a conscious level. So for me, I love the component of it being creative enough to give us the opportunity to find like-minded people to spend time with. When we travel, we're able to meet our friends, like all you girls, if I'm in the same city. I would love to see you. And I would have never had that opportunity if it wasn't for technological advances and bridging the gap with borders that are otherwise there.
No question. Thanks, Trish. And Megan, I think that you maybe wanted to say something quickly on this one too. My apologies.
I just wanted to totally agree with Trish. I'm here because of Instagram, because I found Alida there. and the technology for education. I'm in a year-long mentoring course. It's mostly online. So just agreeing with everything that's been said. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, ladies, here's our next question. How do you keep yourself creatively inspired and motivated in the tech industry? Lucy, do you got something for us on this? You knew it.
Yeah. So yeah, happy to share on this because what keeps me, there's two things I think. What keeps me motivated is collaboration, networking, and getting inspired by people like on this panel, people on the other panels that we've had across the last 2 days, and anybody who's doing some disruptive work, who's being brave, who's taking risks, who's doing things differently, especially when we're working with emerging technologies. Kind of anything goes in some respects. We can still experiment. No real rules or best practices are written yet. I mean, there are some, and we probably need more for obvious reasons. But in terms of getting creative and inspired, there's so much we can do. And I think meeting with amazing people like on this panel that are doing really innovative and creative things, I think that's what keeps me most motivated and inspired. And then the second thing that I would say, I use virtual reality a lot for creativity, to get me inspired. If I'm stuck in a rut, I use it for my coaching clients. We go into space, we go into a deserted island, in a forest, on a beach, to think differently and to get creative.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks. I appreciate that ad so much. And Mary, do you have anything you want to add in on this one?
No, just I'm 100% agreeing with Lucy, because unless I have someone to work with, I have my clients that I work with, but I would always fall back on just using my imagination and my voice to kind of get them through a situation. And it's so nice because I cannot even draw a straight line. So it is really nice to be able to take my creative visions and collaborate with someone who has the skill set that can actually put pen to paper or into VR. And it makes you work harder. I think you work harder for others, at least I do. And it feels great when something comes of it. So yeah, I love that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, next question. Can you share insights on how wellness practices have impacted your professional effectiveness and creativity? Lisa, do you want to add? Yeah, I figured.
I must self-unmute. Well, everything's about self-awareness, generating more consciousness, generating more focus. That's what combined together generates more self-awareness. And then those three things combined together generate personal energy. And so going inward, which I pretty much live inward, I've cultivated that over a few decades of being inward, or perhaps I was born that way, I don't know. But I did notice with myself and others that I work with, creating situations where you have somebody else, you direct someone to go inside themselves. I direct myself to go inside myself. So we're not looking for answers outside of us or someone to step in and fix, rescue, heal, and save us from any situation that we may be concentrating on and transforming.
Mm-hmm.
And so wellness practices for me have always been about generating consciousness and self-awareness. There are so many ways of doing that on the planet. If you're fortunate to be born with that inclination, great. But if you're born in societies or educated in cultures, born into cultures, educated in societies, both of those apply, where you're more outwardly focused, like the US. I'm from Canada, as I said earlier, although I live in Los Angeles, very outward-looking society. People do lose track of themselves. They do lose their space. They don't necessarily, as their first instinct, go inside themselves to seek whatever it is energetically they're looking for. So there's no such thing as solutions. It's just things in transition, things that are constantly moving and changing shape, whether it's the technology that's constantly evolving and changing shape, or it's the human brain or the mind center, in your lower body. That everything is always changing shape. And so if people understand that there's no such thing as a problem, that's self-imposed. No one's at fault, that's self-imposed. And all you have to do is watch your energy level and notice when you need to generate more energy, and watch your consciousness and awareness, and whether it's on yourself or whether it's on other people to come and fix, rescue, heal, and save you. And that generally leads to some kind of drama. And so if you create an environment for yourself and lead from yourself, being inward, then other people respond to that, are inspired by that, and ask you what it is that you're doing that keeps you focused and energized.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa. Megan, you have something you want to say in this?
So much. I love that, because I've learned that I practice energy states with people. And some of us are internal, and that's where our home is. And some of us are external, and that's where our home is. So it's knowing what your unique energy is. So for me, it's community, it's getting out there, it's nature. So that's what I've got. It's the same thing over and over again. Know your style, know your truth, know how to serve humanity, because we all have our own unique recipe.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, our next question. And Robin, everybody's jealous of your balloons, by the way. I just had to toss that in. I mean, I don't know how you did it, but everybody's impressed. What advice would you give to emerging leaders looking to blend tech, creativity, and wellness in their careers? Oh, I love this one. So what advice would you give, ladies? Yeah, Lucy.
My advice is very quick and simple. I think it's collaborate, network. And when I say network, it's just talk to people about what you're interested in, talk about what you're curious about, be really curious, ask loads of questions, and experiment. And that's my advice. And maybe be a bit braver as well in doing things differently.
Thank you. Paige, do you have anything that you'd like to add on this one?
Absolutely. I would share to learn and embrace your value, and share your value, speak up, use your voice. And as you share value, you're helping to bring people together, right? So that somebody else may also feel valued or empowered. And also, as you grow, offset or give back. Always like mentor and provide pathways for those around you. Because when one rises, if we all rise together, we're really making a better world.
Mm-hmm. So Mary, go ahead. And then I'm going to touch a little on this too. I'm super passionate about all the things we talked about here on the screen. So I'm right there with all of you, super just like bubbling inside. Mary, what do you got?
So I was just going to say that there's so much on offer right now. There's just every day I open up and there's a new mid-journey, or there's something else that has been thrown at us. And I would say that try to just listen to your intuition and see what it is that is missing from your wellness program or your clients. What are they asking you for? What do they need the most help with that is lacking? And then do the research, because there's so many aspects to get caught into. There's so many different technologies that are coming out all at once. And as a journalist, I found that every time I bought a bigger camera, cameras got smaller, or they changed, and it went from tapes to VHS to DVD to all these different things. And you can actually get very depressed or kind of fall off the wagon of hope when it comes to all the technology, because it moves quickly. So just find what's missing, focus on it. If you don't have everything, which is a problem with me, I have all these ideas and it doesn't come together right when I need it because I don't have the skill set. But things are moving fast, and if you stick to what you know, and you look and you see what's available, the right things will come together. Patience, research, and stick to it. That's my advice.
Persistent. Yeah. Yes, thank you. So I just want to say on the whole consciousness aspect of things, right? So I did a tremendous amount of building and designing and during the pandemic with groups of medical practitioners in New York City. So when everybody else, their job went dormant, I happened to be in a position to where all of a sudden my entire universe sped up because now we're saving lives and we don't really know what we're dealing with. But to Lisa's point, and Megan and many of you who I've heard, it was the conscious awareness ability that I've cultivated through the years myself, the ability to stay in the present moment awareness and be able to work with everything as it was happening, right? And as all the departments were changing and everything was shifting. And I can promise all of you that when you really lock into your conscious awareness and you stay in that pivotal point of being, everything works out. It's incredible to me how almost all of my entire career literally dropped in, right? And it was all available to me in those exact moments when I needed them the most in order to do all of the things that we had to do. The creativity was off the chain because creative solutions had to be found. And that's how I've trained myself to think for centuries. It feels like decades for sure, decades without exaggeration. So that's my powerful add on this. And also the fact that, you know, psychology and neuroscience says that humanity on an overall whole is conscious about 5% of the time, and that we're running on our subconscious mind about 95% of the time. And I think that's way out of balance. So we really should start training our brains, because the latest technology has been created to mimic our brain and pattern after all of our skill sets and our gifts. And we haven't even begun to touch the surface yet. But technology is allowing us to understand more about our brains, right? And more about our capability. But we don't even know yet, ladies. We don't get ready. Put your seatbelts on. Anybody else? One last ad before we go, before we have to part ways, which I'll be sad about. Kim or Lisa, I'm sorry.
I agree with everything everyone said today. To thy own self be true. People used to call me a projection Jedi because I would magically make things happen. And so it's exactly what you were just saying. It's trusting in being in the moment, and that where you are today is exactly where you're supposed to be, and what you're doing is exactly what you're supposed to be doing. There's a lot of medicine practices that teach the Kala chakra, which is future, present, and past are actually all happening simultaneously. Meaning that I'm a futurist, so part of me is imagining the future and what I'm going to do after this panel finishes. Part of my consciousness is on that. Part of me is present with you now. Part of me, is talking about experience I had that I consciously am aware of has already happened. So I am in future, present, and past right now. And so as we evolve as human beings, each one of us chooses to use our free will to develop our willingness to evolve ourselves. And that makes you a Jedi. So learn some Jedi training.
Jedi's up in here. Yeah. I agree with the Jedi action up in here today. That's for sure. That's ladies, anybody else? We have a few moments left. Does anybody else want to drop any other hot potatoes before we bounce out of here?
One thing that came up for me is that the feminine is self-regulating, the creativity. A red flag for me is in the future that how do we keep AI self-regulated? So just words from the future.
Thank you. Okay, that's it, ladies. We're calling it a wrap. Thank you so much. Thank you for the value that all of you brought to the table and the powerful messages and the guidance for everybody who's going to watch this afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was amazing. Thank you, ladies. What a beautiful day. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Right.
Hi, I'm Sherry Bernhaber, and I'm here to talk today about why disability is a critical component for gender and ESG programs. This talk is based on 2 articles where the links are up on the screen, as well as a QR code. Because I'm based in the US, unless otherwise stated, all the statistics are from the US. So first of all, it's important to understand that there's more disabled women than men. 1 in 4 women has a disability. The average lifespan for people with disabilities from Korea is between 3 and 31 years shorter than the lifespan of somebody without a disability. But the lifespan of women with disabilities is increasing more slowly than the lifespan of men with disabilities. Disabilities is really intersectional. Belonging to multiple marginalized groups puts women at even more disadvantage. So women with disabilities have to fight sexism and ableism. Then you might add in that they're women of color, or that they're older women, or that they belong to visible religious minorities, or that they identify as LGBTQ status. The more intersectional identities you have, the more opportunity there is for people to discriminate against you. COVID had more of an impact on women than men. Before COVID, the unemployment rate for people with women with disabilities was over double the general unemployment rate. Women are more likely to be in blue-collar jobs, which were more impacted by COVID, and they're also being hit harder by both the return to office mandate and caregiving responsibilities. So now switching gears to the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals, there's 17 of them, and 8 of them are very specifically implicated by women with disabilities. So the first goal is no poverty. People with disabilities are twice as likely to be at poverty level in the US than people without disabilities, and they're 4 times as more likely not to have a bank account. So those issues are going to have to be resolved in order to achieve the no poverty goal. No hunger is an issue globally. Households in the US are 1/3 more likely to be food insecure if there's one person with a disability. In the UK, 60% of people who go to food banks have a disability. So these issues have to be resolved in order to achieve the no hunger goal. Good health and well-being, not surprisingly, adults with disabilities in the US are 4 times as likely to report that their health is fair or poor as opposed to good or excellent. Quality education is critical for almost all of these sustainability development goals. American children who are in special education have a much higher dropout rate. Children with mental health disabilities are even higher dropout rates than children with physical disabilities. And outside of the US, less than 5% of children with disabilities have access to any education at all. Then when you get into gender equality, the numbers are even worse. The global literacy rate for women with disabilities is 1%. Women with disabilities experience more discrimination than men with disabilities in the workplace. They're also more likely to struggle with housing, and they're also more likely to be institutionalized. Moving on to goal number 8. People with disabilities frequently are forced to start their own businesses to work around workplace discrimination. But when they do work in the workplace, there's hiring and promotion inequalities, training inequalities, unequal pay, segregation, and the more likely that they're not going to participate in economic decisions. With the starting of your own business, women with disabilities are less likely to have access to credit and other business resources. And there's currently no blockchain or crypto solution that works for people with disabilities. So that's a future goal that will change when AbleCoin, the company that I'm the CEO of, will launch this year. Only 24% of countries in the world have constitutions that prohibit discrimination or guarantee equal rights to people with disabilities. And sustainable cities and smart cities aren't always accessible. There are issues with built environments, there's stairs, there's lack of access to roads, housing, public buildings, spaces, and transportation, as well as technology like websites and apps. Climate action impacts people with disabilities more because they have less access to emergency response programs. People with disabilities are always more likely to die in the event of a natural disaster. Peace, Justice, and Strong Institutes is the final goal, goal 16. People with disabilities are involved in up to half of police use of force incidents. People with hearing loss are shot because they don't comply with police orders that they can't hear. 20% of children with autism will be stopped by police before they turn 21. People with untreated mental health conditions are 16 times more likely to be killed in a police incident than somebody without a disability. So to conclude, and for a call to action, the world is not going to be sustainable for anyone until it's sustainable for everyone, and that includes people with disabilities. And you can help make that a reality by making disability an explicit part of your DEI and ESG programs. Thank you.